Adora sat on her small bed that night, still confused as to what Emeka was doing in town. What is he doing here? Could Kobe have sent him? Or did he come on his own? She picked up her phone and thought of calling Kobe. What were they up to really? As she sat there contemplating, her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Adora froze and her heart raced as the knock came again. Who could that be? She whispered. She cautiously walked to the door, hesitated for a moment, and then opened it. Standing there, looking calm with a wide smile, was Emeka. "Good evening, ma," he greeted politely. Without thinking, Adora grabbed his arm and dragged him inside, shutting the door quickly behind him. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply, looking around as if someone might be watching them. Emeka giggled softly. "Calm down, ma. I just came to check on you. Kobe sent me." "Kobe?" Adora's voice rose angrily. "He sent you here. Why?" "Just to make sure you are okay," Emeka replied calmly. As he spoke, his phone vibrated in his pockets. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. "It is Kobe," he said, holding the phone towards her. "He wants to speak with you." Adora smashed the phone sharply. "Kobe, what is the meaning of this? Why did you send Emeka to ruin my plans?" "Calm down, Mom," Kobe replied. "Are you okay?" "Okay," Adora repeated. "I would be okay if you are not sending people to meddle in my business." "No one is meddling," Kobe assured her. "Emeka is just there as an investor. Unless you want to reveal yourself, no one will." Adora sighed and her anger reduced slightly. "You better not do anything funny, Kobe." "I won't," Kobe giggled. "Trust me, Mom, this is still your show." With a sigh of relief, Adora handed the phone back to Emeka. "You've done your part, Ngwa. You can leave now." Emeka nodded respectfully. "Good night, ma. Please take care of yourself." As the door closed behind him, Adora leaned against it. "That boy," she murmured. "He's going to give me a heart attack. For once, I thought he had spoiled the show for me." Adora returned to the company the next day, determined to act as if nothing had happened. She carried on with her cleaning duties, keeping her head down and avoiding unnecessary interactions. Meanwhile, Emeka began visiting the company more frequently to finalize the investment details with Fatia. He was professional and respectful, but Toyin made it her mission to be wherever he was like a body odor. One day, Emeka stayed longer than usual, and as the clock approached lunchtime, Toyin saw her chance. She approached him with a wide smile. "Mr. Emeka," she said, with a voice sweet like honey, "you've been working so hard. You must be starving. Why don't you join me for lunch?" Emeka hesitated. That's not necessary." "I insist," Tony pressed, smiling widely. "You can't walk on an empty stomach." Before Emeka could protest further, Tony had already called for a proper meal to be delivered to the cafeteria. She led him to a table, practically hovering around him as they waited for the food. As Tony and Emeka sat eating, Adora entered the cafeteria with her lunchbox. She had barely stepped inside when Tony's sharp voice interrupted the peace in the cafeteria. "Hey, you dirty cleaner, what are you doing here?" Tony pointed dramatically at Adora. "You want to stink up the whole place with your smell? Get out!" Adora froze. Out of embarrassment, she held her lunchbox tightly and turned to leave. Emeka looked at Tony with a frown. "Who is she, and why are you speaking to her like that?" Tony rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't mind her. She's just the cleaner. She smells of mop water all the time. Honestly, I don't even know how her family abandoned her like this. Maybe she was a bad luck to them. But that's her business, by the way." Emeka shook his head. "That's a pity." Before Emeka left the office that day, Tony approached him again. "Mr. Emeka, Can I have your phone number? In case we need to discuss anything about the company. Emeka hesitated but eventually gave it to her. Tony's face lit up like a child who had just been given a candy. The moment he left, Tony began bragging to anyone who would listen. You people should start calling me Mrs. Emeka from now on, she declared. Very soon, I will own this company. Fatia and that dirty Adora will be the first people I will sack. Sochi, who was eager to stay on Tony's good side, nodded in agreement. Exactly, they don't know what is coming. With her newfound confidence, Tony became even more unbearable. She paraded around the office like she already owned it, backing orders at everyone and finding every opportunity to belittle Adora. Hey, you missed a spot, Tony sneered one afternoon, pointing to an already clean section of the floor. Clean it again and be quick about that. Adora nodded silently and resumed cleaning, even though she was frustrated. Sochi, who was standing nearby, added, honestly, Auntie Adora, maybe you should just resign. For someone your age, you should be in your village within farms. The two women laughed mockingly at Adora. It was a quiet evening, and the air in Adora's room was filled with the sweet aroma of the stew NK was preparing. Adora sat on the bed, watching the young girl with a thoughtful expression. NK had been a regular visitor, helping Adora with chores and errands, yet something about her disturbed Adora deeply. NK, Adora began, there is something I've been wanting to ask you. NK paused and turned over her shoulder. Yes, Auntie Ada. Adora leaned forward. You keep refusing to marry my son, but you are always here helping me. Why? What do you stand to gain? NK turned off the stove and faced Adora, crossing her arms with a playful smile. Auntie, do I need to gain something to help you? You are all alone here. If I leave you like that, how would that make me feel? Adora sighed and shook her head. But you know I don't have money to pay you. And you have already said you don't want to marry my son. So what is still keeping you here? NK's smile widened as she sat on the bed. Auntie, I'm just being human. It is not every time someone renders help for what they can gain. But that doesn't mean I've changed my mind about marriage. I still want to marry a very rich man. Adora threw her head back and laughed. You and this your rich husband talk. Every time, rich man this, rich man that. Do you think money grows on trees? NK shrugged dramatically. If it doesn't grow on trees, then I will wait for the one who has already plucked them. I can't come and suffer, Auntie. Adora laughed even harder as tears fell from the corners of her eyes. You are something else, NK. Alright now, let's see how it goes. After NK left, Adora sat quietly in her room lost in thoughts. She reached for her phone and called her son Kobe. It didn't take long for him to answer. Mom, Kobe's voice came through slightly amused. What is wrong? It is late. Adora didn't have time to waste. Kobe, I have found the perfect wife for you. There was a pause before Kobe burst out into laughter. Perfect wife? Mom, it seems this your matchmaking is finally coming to a reality. Have you bought our wedding attire yet? Adora's face softened into a smile. Don't laugh. I am serious here. She is hardworking, respectful and kind. Everything a man needs in a wife. Kobe's laughter faded into curiosity. How well do you know this lady, Mom? Are you sure about her? I am very sure, Adora replied confidently. I have watched her. She's the one. Kobe sighed. Alright, if you are so sure, I think it's time I came down. But let me make something clear. I will woo her myself. Even though I agreed to this for your sanity, I'm still the man. I'm not going to let you talk to her for me. Neither will you marry her for me. Adora laughed. Fine, just don't disappoint me. Don't worry, Kobe grinned through the phone. I will handle it. Adora hung up, feeling proud. My son is truly a man, she boasted to herself. Let's see how this plays out. The next morning, NK arrived at Adora's house before she left for work to help her prepare her lunch, but she immediately noticed Adora's cheerful smile. Auntie Ada, you're looking extra happy this morning, NK teased. Did you win a lottery? Adora laughed. Something like that, but you'll find out soon. NK stood still and gave Adora a curious look. Auntie, you're keeping secrets now? Adora shrugged with a mysterious smile. All I'll say is, big things are coming soon. NK rolled her eyes and went back to her work. Alright, keep your secrets now. Just don't forget me when your lottery ticket clicks. Adora laughed. Don't worry, you'll always be part of my plans. Meanwhile, Kobe was making his own plans. He stared at the photo Adora had sent him, and he had a smile on his lips as he studied the lady. She looks interesting, he said to himself. He called Emeka. Bro, I am heading down tomorrow. Emeka laughed on the other end. To meet your mom's chosen bride? Something like that, Kobe grinned. But let's make one thing clear. I will do this my way, no interference. Of course, Emeka replied. But if she's as good as your mom says, you better not mess it up. Oh. Relax, Kobe said. By the time I am done, she'll be begging to marry me. That evening, NK was helping Adora fold some clothes when Adora couldn't resist teasing her again. NK, what if my son comes here tomorrow and sweeps you off your feet? NK laughed so hard that she nearly dropped the skirt she was folding. Auntie, please, your son will have to be a magician for that to happen. Unless he shows up with ₦1 billion in cash, I am not moving an inch. Adora shook her head. You are irredeemable. NK grinned. But you love me like that. Adora smiled. Yes, I do. It was a warm, sunny afternoon when Fetia decided to visit the local shopping mall to pick up some groceries. She walked through the aisles, picking quickly the items she needed: bread, milk, and some vegetables. At the cashier desk, she noticed a young man standing ahead of her, clearly frustrated. He was well dressed, carrying a small basket with a few energy drinks and some snacks. The cashier had just informed him that his card was declining. Try it again, the man said out of embarrassment. He looked around nervously as the queue behind him grew impatient. I have tried it 3 times, sir, the cashier replied. It is not working. The man sighed. This is so embarrassing, he muttered under his breath. Fetia watched the scene unfold and her heart softened. She stepped forward. Excuse me, let me help. The man turned to her, shocked. Oh no, you don't have to. It is fine, Fetia smiled. It's just a few items. Add it to mine. The cashier raised an eyebrow, but quickly scanned the man's items along with Fetia's. The man stood there speechless as Fetia paid and began to walk off with her bags. Wait, he called after her, hurrying to catch up. Please, let me thank you properly. Fetia turned, slightly amused. It is nothing. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't, the man said earnestly. Kindness like this is rare these days. I can't let you live without repaying you. Fetia maintained. It is really not necessary. Please, he pleaded. At least, allow me to buy you dinner tomorrow. I will feel better knowing that I properly expressed my gratitude. Fetia hesitated. Dinner? Yes, please. Finally, she nodded. Alright, dinner it is. The next morning, Fetia was back at work, but her usual composure seemed slightly off. She glanced at her phone every now and then, checking the time or rereading a message. It didn't take long for Tony to notice. She leaned towards Sochi in the cafeteria mischievously. Have you seen Fatia today? She looks like someone who knows her sack letter is coming soon. Sochi giggled. Maybe she has finally realized that Emeka is in love with you. She's probably shaking already. Tony laughed. She hasn't even started though. By the time I become Mrs. Emeka, she will be running out of this office barefoot. The group burst into laughter, but their voices and mockery reached Adora, who was quietly mopping the floor nearby. Adora frowned. Fatia wasn't one to lose focus like this. Was something wrong? Unable to ignore her concern, she went on to knock gently on Fatia's office door. "Come in," Fatia called. Adora stepped inside cautiously. "Good morning. Are you okay? You've seemed distracted today." Fatia blinked, clearly surprised. "Was it that obvious?" Adora nodded. "Yes. Is something wrong?" Fatia hesitated, then laughed softly. "It's nothing serious. I have a small date tonight." Adora's eyes widened. "A date?" she exclaimed before she could stop herself. Fatia giggled. "Exactly my thoughts. It's been a long time since I've done anything like this. I don't even know what to expect." Adora recovered quickly. "Well, just be yourself. You are naturally kind and thoughtful. Any man would be lucky to have you. And don't forget to show your business side too. Men love a woman who is both kind and smart." Fatia smiled warmly. "Thank you, Adora. That is really reassuring." Before Adora left, Fatia handed her a small envelope. "Here, treat yourself to a nice lunch today." Adora accepted it with gratitude, but as she walked out of the office, her heart was pounding. Adora went to a quiet corner and quickly dialed Kobe's number. "Kobe," she almost shouted as soon as he answered. "What are you doing? Where are you?" "Mom," Kobe replied calmly. "What is wrong?" "Fatia," Adora exclaimed. "She's going on a date. Someone else is already asking her out, and you're still there?" Kobe laughed softly. "Mom, relax. You've already sent me her picture, remember? I'll be in town tomorrow, and I'll come to the company with Emeka to surprise her." Adora sighed in relief. "You better not disappoint me, oh." "I won't," Kobe promised. "Trust me." That evening, Fatia dressed carefully, choosing a beautiful and elegant gown. She added a touch of makeup and admired herself in the mirror. "I hope this isn't too much," she said, smiling nervously. Just as she was debating whether to add a necklace, she heard a car horn outside. Fatia peered out of the window and froze. The car was sleek, black, and far too luxurious for her expectations. "Is this for me?" she whispered. As she stepped outside, the driver greeted her politely and opened the door. Fatia hesitated for a moment before getting in. "This car is too much, oh," she thought as she sat nervously. What kind of man sends a car like this for a simple dinner? At the restaurant, Kobe was waiting, looking effortlessly dashing in a perfectly tailored suit. As Fatia approached, he stood and smiled at her. "You look beautiful," he said. Fatia blushed. "Thank you." The dinner was pleasant and their conversation flowed easily. They talked about work, childhood memories, and their favorite places to travel. Kobe avoided any mention of his mother or the company, focusing entirely on getting to know Fatia as a person. Fatia found herself laughing more than she would normally do, and Kobe seemed genuinely interested in everything she said. After the dinner, Kobe dropped her off at home, and surprisingly, Fatia realized that Kobe no longer felt like a stranger to her. The office was unusually busy the next day as the staff prepared for Emeka's visit. But when he arrived this time, he wasn't alone. he came with a young man who seemed more captivating than him, and Emeka seemed to be loyal and respectful to this man. Everyone was held spellbound by this man's presence. If they had rated Emeka 100 before, then this man was definitely 1000. They watched as Emeka led him to Fetia's office. Inside the office, Fetia was shocked to see Kobe standing with Emeka. "Kobe, what are you doing here?" Kobe smiled. "Good morning, Fetia." Before Fetia could ask more questions, Emeka stepped forward. "Miss Fetia, meet my boss, Mr. Kobe Machie. He is the CEO of Machie Group of Companies." Fetia's jaw dropped. "You are the CEO?" Kobe smiled softly. "It's still Kobe to you though." Fetia's heart fluttered and she struggled to gather her thoughts. She extended her hand. "Welcome, Kobe." Kobe took her hand. "Thank you, Fetia." Meanwhile, Tony, who had been watching from a corner, nearly dropped her folder. "Wait, what?" she muttered to herself. "Emeka is his PA? Ordinary PA? So I have been chasing the wrong man all this time." She slapped her forehead dramatically. "Tony, you need to switch gears. That man is the main deal. Emeka was just the butterfly disguising as a bird." Determined to make an impression, Tony grabbed a random file and marched into Fetia's office, pretending to look for something. "Good morning, ma," she said sweetly, and turned to look at Kobe. "Sorry to interrupt, but I need you to sign this file urgently." Fetia raised an eyebrow, sensing Tony's acts, but said nothing. Tony stayed for a moment, hoping Kobe would notice her, but he did not even look her way. Finally, she walked out, murmuring under her breath. After the meeting, Kobe turned to Fetia with a smile. "Would you like to have lunch with me?" Fetia blinked in surprise. "Lunch? Sure." As they walked out of the office together, Tony peeped from her hiding spot and her face twisted with jealousy. "What? She's going out with him? This can't be happening." She clenched her fists. "I need to act fast. There is no way I will let her win." Meanwhile, as Tony's stomach twisted in jealousy and bitterness, someone's heart was full of joy. From a distance, Adora watched as her son and Fetia walked out together, laughing and talking. A smile spread across her face. "So it was my son after all. I really underestimated him though. I should have known. Kobe always has his ways." Back in the office, Tony was still boiling in anger. How did this happen? How did Fetia end up with the man of my dreams? She turned to Sochi, who had been watching her nervously. "I need a plan. If I can't have him, I will make sure Fetia doesn't have him too." Sochi nodded eagerly. "Whatever you do, Tony, I am with you." From the day of their lunch together, Kobe made it a point of duty to send Fetia flowers every morning. Each arrangement was unique. It could be roses one day, lilies the next, and even rare orchids on another day. Alongside the flowers, there was always a box of Fetia's favorite chocolates. The office buzzed with whispers each time the delivery man came. Tony, in particular, couldn't hide her jealousy. She sat at her desk, watching as Fetia received the gift with a shy smile. "So, it is chocolates and flowers now, eh?" she muttered in annoyance. She turned to Sochi, who was filing her nails nearby. She thinks she's special because a man is sending her flowers, as if we don't know what is going on. Sochi's eyes shone with curiosity. "Tony, what do you mean?" Tony leaned closer, lowering her voice, but still ensuring that everyone could hear. "It is obvious, isn't it? Fetia is sleeping with that investor. Why else would he be spoiling her like this? She's risking the company's reputation with her cheap behavior." Sochi gasped. Her eyes were wide with shock. Tony, you are so smart. I didn't even think of that. The gossip spread quickly, and soon many staff members were side-eyeing Fatia. But Fatia, who was unaware of the rumors, carried on with her work, and her heart quietly fluttered every time she saw Kobe's name on the card. However, Toyin grew increasingly bitter because no matter how hard she tried, Kobe didn't even look her way. It was as if she were invisible. This is ridiculous, Toyin fumed one afternoon. How can he not notice me? Am I not beautiful? Am I not charming? Sochi shook her head sympathetically. You are all those things, Toyin. Maybe he's just blind. Toyin sighed dramatically. I have wasted enough time on him. If he doesn't want me, fine. But I won't go empty-handed. I'll just go back to Emeka. Later that day, Toyin approached Emeka with a wide smile. Emeka, she said sweetly, it's been a while since we had a proper chat. Emeka raised an eyebrow. What do you want, Toyin? Oh, nothing, Toyin said, feigning innocence. I just wanted to check on you. You've been so busy with all these meetings. Emeka gave her a single word response. Fine. But Toyin pressed on. You know, Emeka, I've been thinking, we've always gotten along so well. Maybe we should. Toyin, Emeka interrupted her. You should focus on improving your character instead of chasing after men. Your Jezebel behavior won't get you far in life. Toyi's jaw dropped. Jezebel? Me? That's not fair, Emeka. People are just bad towards me. Emeka shrugged. If you say so. Toyin felt insulted but was still unwilling to give up. You see, Emeka, I'm not as bad as you think. Emeka simply walked away, ignoring Toyin. One morning, the office noticed that Adora had not come to work. By mid-morning, Toyin was already making a scene. Can you imagine the nerve of that woman? Toyin complained. She wants to start coming late, as if she owns the place. I will personally see to it that her salary is cut in half. The other staff laughed, some of them nodding in agreement. Meanwhile, Fatia was genuinely worried. She tried calling Adora, but her phone was switched off. This isn't like her, Fatia sighed. That evening, NK arrived at Adora's house as usual. Adora was sitting on her bed, packing some clothes into a bag. Auntie Ada, what is going on? NK asked. Adora sighed. My son has sent for me. I will be leaving soon. NK's face fell. Leaving? Auntie, what about me? Adora smiled gently. I will take you with me. NK laughed out loud. Auntie, I am just joking, no. I don't even have a job. You want me to come and be a burden to you and your son? You will not be a burden, Adora replied. Everything will be fine. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Adora opened it to find Emeka standing there holding some shopping bags. Good evening, ma, Emeka greeted warmly and handed her the bags. These are from Kobe. He asked me to bring them to you. Thank you, Emeka, Adora smiled. NK, who had been sitting quietly, stared at Emeka in surprise. Auntie, who is this? Adora smiled. This is Emeka, his family. NK's eyes moved from Adora to Emeka, clearly confused but too polite to ask further questions. As Emeka made to leave, Adora turned to NK. Please, see him off, my dear. NK hesitated but nodded. Outside, she walked alongside Emeka and her curiosity finally got her. Thank you for coming to visit Auntie Ada. But if you don't mind me asking, why did you leave her here all alone all this time? Emeka laughed. Auntie Ada is very stubborn. She doesn't listen to anyone, not even her son. NK raised an eyebrow. Her son? Where is he? Emeka grinned. You'll find out soon enough. By the way, can I have your number? Enke hesitated, but eventually gave it to him. All right, but don't expect me to pick calls at odd hours. Emeka laughed again. Fair enough. Good night. When Enke got back in, she couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. Auntie Ada, that man said he's your nephew, and he clearly looks like someone who has money. Why didn't you let him help you? Or is he stingy? Adora burst into laughter. Stingy, Emeka? You will understand everything soon, my dear. Just be patient. Enke crossed her arms, still unconvinced. Auntie, I hope you are not planning something funny. Adora smiled mysteriously. You will see. Fetia couldn't shake the fear creeping in her mind. It had been 2 days since Adora missed work, and that was entirely unlike her. Adora was always punctual and dedicated to her duties. Fetia tried calling her again, but the phone was still off. She stormed out of the office. Does anyone know where Adora lives? She asked the staff in the hallway. Most of them shook their heads, except for Idris, the gate man. I saw her going into a compound one day, Idris said. I think I can describe it. Fetia thanked him, jotted down the directions, and set off immediately. With Idris's description, Fetia eventually found Adora's compound. She knocked softly on the wooden door, and the door was opened. Adora's face lit up with surprise and joy. Madam Fetia, you found me? Fetia smiled. Yes, I had to. Are you okay? We were worried about you. Adora stepped aside to let her in. Fetia sat on the bed. I am so sorry for being absent without notice, Adora began. I haven't been feeling well, and my phone hasn't had network. Fetia nodded. I understand, but we miss you. Are you feeling better now? Adora smiled faintly. Yes, much better, thank you. They chatted for a bit, and then Fetia asked, You live here alone. Do you have family? Adora's expression darkened, and her smile faded. She hesitated before speaking. I did, but not anymore. She took a deep breath and began. I had a twin brother, Obiora. We were inseparable. He was my other half. Life was good for us. He got married 2 years after I did, and we thought everything would be perfect. She paused and tried to fight back the tears in her eyes. But that marriage, it was a nightmare. His wife was hot-tempered and impatient. They were always fighting. She accused him of cheating, even though he wasn't. No matter what he did, it was never enough for her. Fetia listened attentively as Adora continued. One night, after another big fight, they went to bed, but while he was asleep, she locked the doors and set the house on fire. Adora's voice broke. Both of them gone, burnt to ashes. Fetia gasped, covering her mouth. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My parents couldn't handle the news, Adora continued. They both passed away shortly after. I was left with nothing but heartbreak. Fetia reached out and held Adora's hands. I can't imagine what you've been through. You are so strong. Adora wiped her tears. From that day, I swore that my son would never make the mistake of marrying the wrong woman. I have seen how a bad partner can destroy one's life. Fetia was deeply moved. Is your son married now? Adora's lips curved into a soft smile. He is not married yet, but I think he has found the right woman, and I couldn't be more proud. Fetia smiled slightly. I hope things work out between them. It will, Adora said confidently. And about you, don't be afraid to give a good man a chance when you find one. As long as you are convinced of his character, take the leap. Fetia laughed. I'll think about it. The next day, An impromptu email was sent out to everyone that the company would be welcoming some August visitors and a great change would be happening that day. Everyone was caught off guard, but they quickly reorganized and got ready. Just before noon, the sound of luxurious cars pulling into the compound silenced the staff. Two men in sharp suits stepped out, followed by Emeka and Kobe. Finally, a woman emerged, dressed in an elegant designer gown and a hat that partially covered her face. "Who is she?" someone murmured. "She looks like royalty," another person exclaimed. The group entered the conference room where Fatia was waiting, while the rest of the staff remained outside. Inside the conference room, Fatia welcomed the group, although her curiosity about the mysterious woman was evident. The two men in suits introduced themselves as representatives of the family who owned the company. "We are here to finalize the transfer of ownership," one of them announced. "The Machie family has officially purchased this company." Fetia's jaw dropped. "Purchased? I didn't know the company was up for sale." The men nodded. "It was a private negotiation. The papers will be signed now." Once the documents were signed, the two men left, leaving Fatia alone with Kobe, Emeka, and the mysterious woman. The woman reached up and removed her hat. Fatia gasped. "Adora!" Adora smiled warmly. "Yes, it is me." Fatia sat frozen, trying to process what she was saying. I don't understand." Adora smiled. "Calm down, Fatia. Let me explain. I am Adora Machie, wife of the late Machie and managing director of Machie Group of Companies. Kobe here is my son and Emeka is his PA." Fatia collapsed further into her chair, staring at Adora in disbelief. You are the owner?" Adora nodded. "Yes. All that cleaning and pretending, it was just my way of finding the right person for my son. You remember the story I told you last night about how my twin brother was burnt by his wife? Yes, I had to do this to get a good woman for my son. If not, I wouldn't rest in peace. I'm glad it was not all in vain. I am sorry for the inconvenience all of this must have cost you, but I don't regret it one bit. I don't regret meeting you and knowing you." Fatia was in tears by now. "I don't know what to say." Adora smiled. "Just say yes to my son." At that moment, Kobe knelt down and held out a small velvet box. "Fatia, will you marry me?" Fatia's hands flew to her mouth as her tears spilled over. She nodded. "Yes, a solid yes." The room erupted in applause as Kobe slid the ring onto her finger. Adora embraced Fatia warmly. "Welcome to the family," she whispered. Emeka then coughed. "Since the company is now ours, I believe we have some immediate cleanup to do, as this place is too toxic for any proper growth to happen." They all agreed and stepped into the lobby where the staff had been assembled. Everyone's mouths opened in shock when they recognized Adora standing in the midst of the investors. However, Fatia gave them no chance to think about anything before cutting right into the chase. This is to inform you all that the ownership of this logistic company has officially changed hands. The former owners, who just left, had sold it to the Machie family, who were already major investors. So, I will let the MD of Machie Group of Companies address you all. She nodded to Adora, who stepped forward and smiled. It is safe to skip the introductions and welcome parts because not everyone will need them. Some of you, unfortunately, will not be continuing this journey with us. The room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop as Adora continued. But before I get to that, I have a word for some unscrupulous, evil, demonic, and naturally wicked individuals here. Those of you who have chosen wickedness as your lifestyle, those who thrive on malice, hatred, and ill manners, I say thank you, because without your bad behavior, we wouldn't be able to appreciate the good ones among us. But while you have the freedom to choose wickedness, you do not have the freedom to choose your consequences. With that said, Miss Toyin, Miss Sochi, and Mr. Idris, your services are no longer required here. Please make your way to the exit. Any further lingering will be considered trespassing. Let this serve as a warning to others. Meanwhile, we've already interviewed some competent, humane individuals who would be taking over your positions from tomorrow, as well as the position of Miss Fatia here. At the mention of Fatia being fired too, Toyin was relieved. A smile of mischief spread across her face as she realized that she was not the only one being sacked. But that smile froze when Adora went on to say, Fatia, who is now my son's fiancée, would be taking over from me as the MD of the group, and so she would be operating from the headquarters alongside with her husband, Kobe. I mean, it's a blessing to have both a kind soul and a business guru in the family. I believe we will achieve so much together. The news was so huge that everyone, including Fatia, was shaking. She had not expected the promotion so quickly. Tony tried to move to Emeka's side to beg and ask for grace, but within the twinkle of an eye, she was yanked outside the premises by the security men who had been stationed discreetly in the corners. As the Machie family began to leave, Emeka suddenly paused. I think there is one more thing we need to address. Adora raised an eyebrow. What? NK, I have been talking with her for a while now, and I don't plan on leaving without her. Adora's face broke into a wide grin. Just what I was hoping to hear. Let's go get her then. When they arrived at NK's house, she was already standing outside with her bags packed. She smiled nervously and confused as the group approached. Good evening, Auntie Ada, NK said as she looked between the elegant cars and Emeka. Adora beamed. NK, meet my son Kobe and his fiancée Fatia. Emeka stepped forward and took NK's hands. Thank you for everything you've done for Auntie Ada. You've been an amazing help to her. Now, it is time to come with us. We'll explain everything later. As the group went to board the plane, Adora looked at the four young people, Fatia and Kobe, and NK and Emeka proudly. She turned to Emeka and whispered, You better treat NK well, or you answer to me. Emeka laughed. Yes, ma. As Adora settled into her seat, she thought to herself, my husband must be smiling in heaven now. Kobe is in good hands. But first, I have 2 elaborate weddings to plan. I better start immediately. She leaned back with a satisfied smile, knowing that her mission was complete. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What did you like about the story, and what did you learn from the story? Which character was your favorite and which was your least favorite? Let's know in the comment section. Give this story a thumbs up and also share it out with your loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe if you've not done so you don't miss out on other interesting stories. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!